Hey YouTube, Ty once again. Uh, I wanted to make this video to sort of redo one video I did in the past. And that was how Bob Iger is retiring from the Walt Disney Company. And this video is why I should be the new head of the Walt Disney Company. I've taken some entrepreneurship classes in college. While I didn't graduate, it was more for like college experience. It was for kids like me who are special, and they could basically literally get free college for college experience, and that's really all it was. I also worked for a guy who owned a small business for 4 years. But one of the main reasons why I think I'd be good for the position is I love film history. I wouldn't classify myself like as a film historian because I don't really have anything to prove that. I could say I'm a film historian by all the research I've done on film. I would even say that, I do think that, Walt, I would consider myself a futurist like Walt too, looking to the future and seeing what we can do with technology to make it better. But I would take it one step further in our films, using technology, but using humans with practical effects and combining them to make a better product. That's the other reason why I think I'd be good for the position, is because of the fact how much I know of my film history. And I can run it with a business sense. I would also probably even hire a team that will, be the people who I would trust. And I already have those people in mind. I'm not going to say them in this video because what would be the point unless I get the position. I also have many ideas. Like one idea, I mentioned it in the last video where I said this, but I don't really felt like I explained it the best, was that I think it would be cool to have an expansion park somewhere else in the United States. Like, I'm from Kansas, so maybe in Kansas, where, we buy the rights to Ringling Brothers and P.T. Barnum circus, and we have a stationary circus, but with Disney having as much money as they do, you buy land, you keep the animals in their natural habitat, and then when you want the animals, you make them do the things that you want them to do. I think that would be a really cool idea because, I loved the circus growing up. I remember when P.T. Barnum and Ringling Brothers came to Lawrence. I went to that show. I remember my dad bought me a whip. A real whip. And in case anybody asks, yes, this is an Indiana Jones hat. It's my professional hat. I will be always wearing this hat to any special event because it's one style that needs to come back. Having a fancy hat when you dress up. And I don't have so yes. Now, one of the reasons why I think I would be better is because I see a lot of things at Walt Disney that, I'm just not proud of. And I don't think that Walt would be particularly proud of it either. A lot of the employees at Walt Disney, and I say employees because of the directors, who people tweet at them how they didn't like their movie and then the people say, well, you just don't like strong women. To an extent, I think that some people are just being trolls. But I would say that if they're being trolls, think about if they are being trolls, or think about if they are giving you constructive criticism. Because sometimes it's hard to tell online. I would say to any employee at the Walt Disney Company, if I'm the head of it, ask around. See if you think these people are being a troll. If they are, block them. That's all I will say to them. Do not feed the trolls and say, well, you're this sexist because you don't like strong women. To be fair, sometimes we have characters that just don't work. I would actually want to hire, for any department that we have, what if it would be Marvel, Star Wars, / Lucasfilm, Fox, any department that we have, we will have script doctors, because sometimes I think that movies nowadays need a really good rewrite. We will have script doctors saying, okay, does this work? Does this work? While it is always should be the director's vision, movies are a collaborative effort where it's the producer, the director, the screenwriter, special effects people, cinematographers, actors. You put them all into a blender, and sometimes it comes out good. I mean, you could have a great souffle, or then just and then just like something that you're like, wow, don't make that again. That was terrible. Movies are the same way with a blender. You blend all these things together and hope you come out with something good. Now, I also think that one thing that is missing in the Walt Disney Company is using this platform that I'm using right now as a benefit. Walt Disney, yes, Bob Iger is the head of the Walt Disney Company, but one of the things that was so cool about Michael Eisner and Walt is that they would be the face of the Walt Disney Company. They would, have shows to promote, all the stuff that they did in the Wonderful World of Color. Well, what if we switched the Wonderful World of Color to possibly this channel, or even Walt Disney's? We can make a official Wonderful World of Color YouTube channel. There are so many ideas I could talk about, but I really think that it could benefit for Walt Disney to hire a young guy like me. I'm 26. I'm going to be 27 pretty soon here. I think it would be really cool to have a young guy be the head of the company, because I would say look at, maybe not necessarily the best example, but look at Zuckerberg. When he started Facebook, he was only 20 years old. Now, and he runs a how many dollar industry, and he did that right out of college. Now, I think that, one of the things that I could bring is that showman aspect. While I'm a young guy, I mean, I, would consider myself somewhat of an actor. And, Walt acted too. He was the original voice of Mickey Mouse. Michael Eisner, while he didn't really do a lot of acting, he was actually a fairly good actor on camera. Now, granted, he was playing himself, but, I took acting in high school, all courses that my high school had. I believe I got an 8, and I don't remember. That was like 10 years ago. Yeah, a lot of companies, are hiring younger guys to be the head of the company. Now I'm 27, but I also have, a lot of work experience, in business, for taking the classes, working for guys who own small, one guy owned a small business. Um, I also understand how the film business works. I also, like, I can't stress enough, I know my film history. I mean, Walt started the company, you could argue, when he was only 19 years old with the Laugh-O-Gram Studio in 1921. Walt would have been 20 years old. And it ended in when he was 22 in 1923. Now, the actual Walt Disney Company, yeah, I mean, it started in 1923. But you could argue that it started with the Laugh-O-Gram Studio in 1921. Because really the Laugh-O-Gram Studio was just a subdivision. Not subdivision, not the right word. The Laugh-O-Gram Studio was the early incarnation of the Walt Disney Company. And Walt had to learn business sense. I actually do have business sense. Now, but the best thing you can learn if you're going to run a successful business is to listen to the people. And I feel personally, again, that Disney has somewhat failed at that. Now, I'm going to share with you a personal plan that I have for the company. Now, we're going to go into movies. We're going to go into the parks. I've shared some of them earlier, but this is just the big plan. Starting with movies. Marvel is done. We will take a break from the Marvel movies. Because in the end, I think the Endgame was a perfect conclusion. We'll take a break from the Marvel movies. We'll have, if it's necessary, we'll have one big final movie with the characters. But then we'll just move on. We'll just say Marvel, Marvel's done. No more Marvel for a while. Star Wars, we will continue animated TV shows, but Star Wars should always be an event. Something that you take the next generation to. That's what Star Wars should be. And that's what Star Wars has always been. So we would take it to, okay, well, have cartoons, video games. That's one thing that I will definitely do is say, LucasArts, you guys are the official Walt Disney video game company. I would bring back LucasArts. I would say that, first of all, make Star Wars games and have at it. I would also say we should focus on Indiana Jones. And I think another actor can play Indiana Jones because, again, there have been how many actors that have played Indiana Jones? And I've made videos about this. I've reviewed all of the Young Indiana Jones TV shows. I've reviewed the Indiana Jones movies. I talked about the Indiana Jones video games. I've talked about what happened in between the movies. So yeah, Indiana Jones has been covered on this channel. And eventually, I think those movies, eventually, in the long run, I think that, Young Indiana Jones deserves another video on this channel. But that's another video for another day. But Harrison Ford, River Phoenix, Corey Carrier, Sean Patrick Flannery, and George Hall. 5 actors have played Indiana Jones. That being said, why can't a 6th actor play Indiana Jones? And if you want to go into it, Indiana Jones, the TV show, is canon because they mention it in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Despite how you feel about that movie, it is still, they still reference young Indiana Jones. Now, because they make a Pancho Villa reference, and that's a reference to My Spring Break Adventure. Indiana Jones's first adventure when he was, or one of his first adventures when he was about 16. Now, while I think that Chris Pratt is a little, I think he's just too well known. I think that you have to go with a completely unknown. I have my personal choice. I really think that this one actor, Philip Winchester, could do it. He's a good actor, but he can also make a good action star, and I think that's what you need for Indiana Jones. Who I would hire, depending on how, at this time of this making of this video, No Time to Die, the new James Bond movie, has not come out. I would hire him. I would hire the guy. I would keep the guy who made he's making the new TV show This Is Us. He's been hired to write Indiana Jones 5. I would hire him, but then I would hire the Duffer Brothers to kind of, touch up the script. Just touch it up. But Cary Fukunaga, I believe is the guy's name, who's directing No Time to Die. And the reason I would hire him is because Spielberg and Lucas were influenced by James Bond, along with the 1930 serials. It's one of the reasons why they casted Sean Connery as Indiana Jones. It's his father. Now, with that being said, I would say hire him because, in a weird way, you could call Indiana Jones the American James Bond. In a weird way, because, think about it, Indiana Jones versus James Bond. We have Star Wars versus Star Trek. Well, here's the thing that I point out. J.J. Abrams directed both Star Wars and Star Trek. So I think it'd be kind of cool if we had a director like that who directed both beloved franchises. And I would give my notes to the writer of This Is Us, and my notes to the Duffer Brothers on what I think they should do with Indiana Jones. Now, getting back to Disney remaking their classic material and or getting to that, I would say no. We're just going to stop that. That's stupid. We're not going to do that. Walt Disney always focused on public domain stories. Pub, Public domain's beloved classic stories, such as a lot of the Grimm fairy tales and stuff like that. So, like, why haven't we gotten like a Disney version of, like, here's my pitch. What if they made a Disney version of Phantom of the Opera, Dracula, Frankenstein? An animated version, but give it a little bit of a darker edge. Why have we gotten that? I mean, I think that would be cool. And you can do that because Dracula and Frankenstein and Phantom of the Opera are in the public domain. They made a Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that was good. So why haven't they done Dracula, Frankenstein? They can't do the Wolfman because that's not public domain, but you could always just do a werewolf story. So focus on classic books. Like, I personally feel like the Disney 1950s version of Treasure Island just doesn't work. I think that, you could remake that. If you're going to remake something, you should remake something that really didn't work in the first place and make it better. Like, while I like the movie, I think it'd be cool to see a remake of The Black Hole. I personally think it would be cool to see it. And one of the other things I would focus on is saying, listen, let's make Tron 3. People love Tron. Now, I would say maybe not make it as big as a budget as Tron. 2, see if you can do it low budget. If you can't, really, really advertise it. But don't over-advertise it. Now, one of the other things I would say is we should make it where Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland and all the parks are the happiest place on earth. Because sometimes they're not. And we have to make our guests and our employees happy. They are a multi-billion-dollar industry, Walt Disney, the whole Walt Disney Corporation. And yet, if you do your research on a lot of employees, it's kind of sad. I would give great benefits to the employees. I would treat the company in the way that I think that Walt would want it, because I think since Michael Eisner left, Disney has not been the way that Walt wanted it. No disrespect to Mr. Iger, but I think that it should be that we should treat it the way that Walt wanted it. And while I think that there is while I think that, the future, people say the future is streaming, I still think people love going to the theater. You just have to find that one thing that people will gravitate towards to go to the theater again. You have to find that thing. And I don't know if that thing is there yet. I have a few ideas on what I think it could be, but I don't know what it is. I will find it though. I will bring people back to the theater because streaming, how I look at streaming, is it's basically TV back in the 50s. People in the 50s would have rather stayed at home and then watch stuff on TV versus going to the theater. But actually, what brought people back to go to the theater was movies such as Ben-Hur, El Cid, Spartacus, Lawrence of Arabia, the Hollywood epics that people are like, oh my gosh, wow, these are amazing. Then fast forward about 10 or so years later, people didn't want to go to the theater because they were making dark, depressing movies. Now some of those movies are good, such as Dirty Harry and The French Connection, and Rollerball and stuff like that. They were post-apocalyptic. Some of them were strict anti-heroes that maybe sometimes the audience couldn't really relate to. Even though some people really loved Dirty Harry, but I think some people couldn't really relate to Dirty Harry. But then what brought people back to the theater was Star Wars. Now I think that there is one thing that could bring back people to the theater. I have a prediction. I think that the new Dune movie directed by Denis Villeneuve, however you're supposed to pronounce it, I do not know. I think that's going to be a hit. So I think the next big thing is sci-fi. Now, while Disney has the biggest sci-fi franchise of all time, I think we should find other sci-fi. Maybe we should apologize to the John Carter estate and do another John Carter movie. But find a way to do it that is original. That's what I would say. And as for the parks, on what I would do, first of all, we would never, as long as I'm the head of the company, classic rides will remain classic rides. We will not change any classic rides. One thing that I will do for guests and fans of the company is, I will say, for the Disney Movie Club, you guys are going to have an option, if you're a member of the Disney Movie Club, to buy DVD copies of all the rides, history of the rides, past, present, and future. You would have that as an option if you're a member of the Disney Movie Club. And if you're not, you can suggest to a friend, and we'll send it their way. This is all hypothetical if I was head of the Walt Disney Company. One of the things I also think that we do that I touched upon is, I was so sad when the Ringling Brothers and P.T. Barnum Circus closed. I mean, it started in 1875 or 1880 or something like that. And it closes because of animal rights organizations. That was just so sad. What I think they should do is, as the company of the Walt Disney Company, we buy the rights to the name, but we do not put our name on it. We buy land and we put it in that spot, and we have an area where the animals can be free, but when it comes time to do the show, the animals can flourish and be stars. I would also say that that's one thing I would do, and because I do think that, the circus still inspires kids to this day, and the fact that the biggest circus of all time is no more is just sad. So that's one thing I would do, is bring back the circus, and specifically Ridley Brothers and P.T. Barnum. Now, I wanted to just kind of remake this one video, and if you like it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and goodbye for now. But make sure you keep this trending. Make sure you get this to Bob Iger so maybe he could see it. So, if you like what you hear, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel.